Okay, good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. Welcome to this last episode of the first edition of the Self-Driving Cars with Duckietown course. It was a long adventure. We finally made it to this point. And today we wanted to bring a touch of humanity to this whole online experience and concluded the course by first and foremost recognizing the hard work of the many people in the background that maybe most of you learners in the course had not had an opportunity to interact with, but definitely have brought essential contributions and made this course happen. Then we would like to remind you to provide feedback for the course, but at the same time, do some look back ourselves and see what have we learned from the course and do some analysis. Then there's going to be the unexpected fun declaration of challenges winners and vesting of special awards and titles that we have come up with during this course. And finally, we will provide some information of what's coming next between this and the next edition of the MOOC, and in general, outside the MOOC, how can you learn? How can you use what you learned in these weeks, in these months, to continue your Duckietown experience and your learning of these fascinating subjects. Finally, we will have Professor Emilio Fezzoli conclude the course by providing final thoughts and remarks. We will then at the end take some questions if there are any. I do encourage anybody of you that is in the talk now to just type down your question in the Q&A panel you have of the webinar, and we will reply either at the end live or directly during the presentation. So unless I have forgotten anything, I think we can start. So we will start from the acknowledgements. I would really want to spend a minute to thank Innovendum at ETH, who made this whole course possible. And in particular, Marinka and her team that supported us and believed in the course and brought us, let's say, from an idea to an actual implementation about this. I would like to thank the whole video team at ETH, Artan, Martin, Olaf, and others that the many others that have been essential at every step of the way, and recording and post-producing and reminding us of the deadlines. And I would like to thank them in particular for their patience in dealing with the instructors and all of this process. I would like to thank the team of students and staff sorry, at ETH, in particular Vincenzo, Jason, Raphael, Marcus and Nina, who have all been instrumental to make this course happen by providing technical support, answering your questions on Slack, fixing exercises, demos, bugs, and all of that, and by providing all sorts of administrative support. I would like to thank Charlie at the University of Montreal as well for her really hard and amazing work in some of the exercises. I would like to thank the technical team and at NVIDIA, in particular Amit and Lynette, for their support throughout this course and before. And finally, Cameron Perron at AWS for helping us by providing support for all the cloud computation part of this course. That was a big one and made all the automatic grading experience possible for all of us. So that said, I would like to maybe pass the word to Andrea, who can remind us quickly why it is important to do feedback, and for us as well, instructors, we have lots to learn. This was the first edition, and to spend a few words on what have we learned from the course.
Thank you, Jacopo. So welcome to the end. This has been a big adventure for us. This was the first time that something like this was attempted at EDX in general. And so we look for your feedback. You see a QR code here, goes to a Google form for feedback. Also, we have sent, I think we will also send again some links through email so that you can fill in the form. And believe me, we read every comment and we try to improve. Next slide. So we already had some feedback, we already read it, and of course we have our own impressions about the class. So I think it's time to say, how did it go? So what went well, what didn't go so well? We were surprised that the course was extremely well received, and people were very excited about the materials, but also the concept of the class, the idea that there is a hands-on part in it. And some things we thought would break didn't break. So that's good. For example, the evaluation infrastructure was working very well, and we are very grateful for that. There are also things that didn't go so well. I think at the beginning, especially, the experience was not as polished, and only later, based on your feedback, we polished it. And by the experience, I mean all that's involved in doing the activities or submitting the exercises. And now we're happy that towards the end now this experience is polished. Also, I think one problem with the class was that there were a few delays with the schedule as we tried to make everything work well. And in general, there was a bit of uncertainty. Maybe we didn't do a good job to communicate delays or changes in the schedule. Next slide, please. So yeah, you go, Leah. Yeah.
Okay. So we didn't mean to make this a competition. Learning is a competition against ourselves, not against others. But at the same time, we are in the times of Olympics, so we thought of bringing some special mentions to the winners of the various challenges. These are the winners on the leaderboards as of maybe 10 hours ago. So if things changed for last minute, let's say late submitters, then we will review. But we would like to congratulate with the various winners, in particular the Gold Star medalists. And we do see that some names are recurring, but it was really fun to look at all the top 10s in the various challenges and see the competition going on. So congratulations to those of you who nailed the solutions to the various problems. On top of this, we wanted to recognize some special, let's say, feats that were done by some of you throughout this course. But this only after thanking pretty much the great majority of you that have been really helping us throughout the course, not only by pointing out the bugs and asking questions and being insistent on understanding how things worked or not, but especially for helping each other. We saw really a lot of activity from many of you on Stack Overflow and answering each other's questions, and that was really something that we appreciated, and I thought brought great value to the whole experience. So thank you very much. So we wanted to assign these special awards. The Olympian is the first one, who won the most gold medals, and that goes to Samsa Ayanta. I am sorry to you and to anybody that comes next if I am butchering the pronunciations of your names. We would like to assign the professor title to Manuel, I think, Mhered, user, that has received the most achievement points on Stack Overflow after the staff. We would like to award the title of the builder to Ed Murphy for managing to make it work from scratch with an amazing parallel job on the definition of side Duckybot. We wanted to give the title of The Warrior to Arva, who has submitted the biggest number of attempts to all challenges combined. So congratulations for the grit. The title of The Ninja, again to Samsa, for finding, reporting, and not disclosing to the public some critical, let's call them features of the system. We appreciated that, and thanks. And finally, the title of the Samaritan to RD19, who went above and beyond for others, not publicly, but the actions were what matters in the end. So thank you all. Congratulations to the award winners. There are actually awards for you. So if you just reach out to us and send us a mailing address, we will be happy to ship you a token of our appreciation and a souvenir for the course. So Andrea, maybe you want to talk about next, what's coming next?
Yes, so we're going to do another edition of the MOOC starting in September. There's going to be differences. One of these is that it's going to be user-paced, which means, as opposed to instructor-paced, which was the format for the first edition, user-paced means that at the beginning of the class, all the videos are already available. They're all released at the same time. Although we might not release all the exercises at the same time, because it would be very hard for us to answer questions on 10 different exercises at the same time. So maybe we do half and half or something like that. But this means that if you did a previous edition and maybe you didn't finish, maybe you have some units left, you don't have to wait for December to do, right? You will have available many of the materials at the beginning. There's also going to be more content. We have the planning tree module, which is sampling-based motion planning. And we are going to have more graded exercises and also more non-graded activities. And I think the idea here is that we want to provide a streamlined experience if somebody has limited time, but also we're happy to provide more activities if you really want to go in depth in some of these topics. Next slide, please. Now, what happens in between editions? There's about 5 weeks from now to September. So during these 5 weeks, the EDX course will be not available, but we will make the materials available on our website. And we'll send you the links for that. Everything else that's not the EDX website is going to continue to work as usual. So the exercises, the Git repos, the evaluation server, all of these are continuously available. And also available will be the Stack Overflow and the Slack. So you can continue to work on the exercises that you didn't have time to finish.
We will probably reset the leaderboards so not to confuse the results of the MOOC, but you can still participate and have the same experience.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. So then, for those of you who finished the materials, and maybe they want to go to the next challenge, in mid-September, we will also start the next edition of the AI Driving Olympics. And this is a competition at NeurIPS, which happens in December. And it's basically what you've been doing in the format, right? So it's submissions, the challenge server, just that now you're battling with everybody else in the world. But I think it's a good challenge for you. You will see that there's going to be many combinations of tasks, and there is you can do the easy tasks like line following, or you can go to the hard task like when you need to coordinate 4 or 5 vehicles at the same time. So I hope there's something for everybody there. The official start is mid-September. However, the challenges are already open, let's say in beta form. And those are the challenges that start with the IDO rather than MOOC. So you can start working on it now if you want. All right, so now I think for closing the session, well, now let's give the word to Professor Frazzoli to have some final considerations about your journey into becoming a roboticist. And then we will stay for a few minutes and answer your questions that you can ask with the Q&A function. Please, Emilio.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Well, okay, it's good to see you all, or virtually, at the end of this course, on the other side of this Ducky hall. First of all, I would suggest that you really have to congratulate yourselves in finishing this course, and it's a big accomplishment, I think. Also, I would like to acknowledge the work of Jacopo, Andrea, and Liam, and all the other people who were involved in the class. This is really an amazing course. It's really been amazing in the way that it's been offered, and in a way, I would just along for the ride, and this is really their brainchild. And what you have seen is what I think is not only a very innovative way of teaching robotics, but I think that is something that I hope will be also the future of engineering education in general. Essentially, what you did is was a very practical introduction to autonomous robotics, where you didn't just learn about algorithms and theory and problems and potential solutions. You actually applied them in the real world, simulation, on hardware. And that is something that makes all the difference, I think. Probably was much harder than other courses that you have taken, maybe. Probably, a lot of ups and downs, things that don't work, bugs in your code, in somebody else's code, the hardware is not working, in general, the real world getting in the way. The thing is that this is what engineering is really about. And I think that, having this experience is really important. Something else that may have been important is that as you went through these, all these problems, you were not alone, right? So this was a very cooperative experience with your instructors who are, helping you along, but also your peers. Interaction on Stack Overflow or other online collaboration media, even in the point where we were all working from home, right? So, and I think this is also another important part of working in engineering in the real world. You're not alone. You need to rely on your team and other people who are more experienced than you, probably mentors, but also your colleagues. And really try to understand what are the strengths and leverage their strengths. And all of that is clearly all the more important for those of you who have actually taken the time and the effort to use the hardware, because clearly when you're working with hardware, everything is more challenging, but also clearly more interesting. So the course was organized in a way that was very broad, and that was intentional, because what we wanted to do is give you an exposure to everything that is involved in creating a robot and making it work. The design, all the different components, the modules, what are all the pieces that go together. All the theory, the algorithms, the software tools, the collaboration environment, getting the data for learning, and all of these things, right? So these are all important part of robotics. And what you saw is, this is really important because even though you have all these many components, all these components are interacting in ways that may not be obvious. So when you are designing a component, let's say say a planner, right? So you cannot assume that, say, perception is perfect, right? And vice versa, right? So many choices that you make when designing the planning module may impact other modules. There's no right solution, so many different design choices, but you really need to learn how to assess the trade-offs between these choices. And again, if you did this with hardware, you may have seen a lot of, how the real world can mess with your careful design. And why is this important? As you know, robots are already cleaning, vacuuming our floors, or cleaning our swimming pools, or mowing our lawns. And in many cases, you may not be aware of this, but robots probably put together most of your car, and and many other products that you use on a daily basis. Robots are also becoming more present in our daily lives. And I think that this also gives rise to a number of other questions that kind of like go beyond the classical robotics education or curriculum. One of the things that you should think about is where on one hand, there are the ethical implications when robots are interacting with humans. Also at the larger scale, right? So what are the societal implications, right? So how is a certain robotic technology going to impact society, and what can you do, about it? And just being a responsible part of society in your role as an engineer. Something else that is also very important is being aware of the technology that is behind the robotics, behind robots, not only in terms of being aware of what the robots can do, but also of what the robots cannot do. In fact, this was when I started working on autonomous cars. It was really important for me to do public demos and really pilots where the public was invited to participate. And part of the point was to show what these cars could do, but also part of the point was to educate the public in terms of what is it that these cars cannot do. For example, people think that autonomous cars will eliminate completely accidents, right? Well, maybe so, but there are things that, for example, there's nothing you can do in terms of algorithms and sensing technologies to eliminate inertia, right? So robotic cars will still need some room in order to stop when they are moving at speed. And it is important to be aware of all the limitations of the technology. A lot of the things that you've seen in the course are actually, still common for practitioners in industry and in the labs. Your sensors are not perfect. They have, their noise and limitations, and a lot of these things are kind of unexpected. When we started working with LiDARs, for example, I thought that the LiDAR would be an amazing technology, would allow us to detect all the vehicles around us. But then we discovered that the LiDAR, or at least the LiDAR we're using at the time, could not detect black cars. Okay, so now what do you do when you cannot see black cars? Just paint all the cars some bright colors. Well, maybe that's not something that you can enforce. So these are all things that you need to take into account when designing your robots. The hardware will always be constrained by resources, by available power, weight, cost, availability of the chips. You've seen that today, because of the pandemic, now it's hard to get chips to to put in your car or any other products. And then all the other things that you've seen, bugs in the code and security problems, and a lot of other things. But the good thing, I think, that what we have done in the course, we have learned about a lot of different aspects. I think that the breadth also allows you to understand what are the different components and possibly focus on understand really what are the components that really excite you, right? So what is the problem or the kind of problems that you want to solve in your career so that you can choose what to concentrate on in your future studies or, either in a formal setting on your own. But these are things that is really important to really understand what is it that you're excited about and want to focus on and learn more about. And the fact is that as of today, there are not that many people who have this skill set, the skill set that we started educating you for. The people with this kind of skill set are really, hard to find on the market. So hopefully you will have an opportunity to work on some of the today's, very exciting, technologies. People talk about autonomous cars, and clearly is not done, right? So there's still a lot of work to be done. Autonomous cars, autonomous trucks. People start thinking about mobility in the 3 dimensions, so autonomous airplanes and for personal mobility as well. But you can also think of a lot of things that happen behind the scenes. You can start thinking about tracking, logistics, what happens inside, like factories, and of course talk about manufacturing and things like that. And in all of this, what we are seeing is that there is a lot of progress being made, but as we make progress, we also discover a lot of new problems and issues that we have not foreseen at the beginning. And definitely will be some time before we solve all these problems. And I think that this is a great opportunity for some fresh minds to join the workforce and really make their contribution in making all these technologies real. Okay, so I think that I will stop here, and I think that the next step will be to take some questions for all of us.
Thank you very much, Emilio, for your comments and insight. So at this point, I see that we have a number of questions already in the chat. Some have been answered. If anybody has additional questions, you can continue typing them in the Q&A box. Liam, do you want to pick some questions that have been asked and not answered yet, and we can take them live?
Yeah, sure. Do you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll start actually with the question that I did type an answer to, a question from Olivier. The question is whether we intend to adjust or change any of the content for the next sessions of the course. I think the answer to that is that by and large, the bones of it will stay the same. There will be small modifications, of course. And then Andrea showed on one of the slides some of the additional exercises and activities that we're planning to build. But the basic foundation of it, we plan to keep roughly the same. And another comment from Olivier that I wanted to highlight, it also ties in with something that Emilio was just talking about, was how challenging the course was. And we're very interested to know which parts specifically you found challenging, for sure. Part of the balance here is that we're trying to build infrastructure that makes it easy for you to get started on the one hand, but on the other hand, we can't hide all of the messy details from you, because then you're not getting the real flavor of what it is to do robotics. And so we're trying to find that middle ground where the tools are there to help. They allow you to interact with the system at the right level of abstraction, but that you still feel that you're like connected to the real problem. And so this is actually a lot of work on our side, a tremendous amount of work to build this infrastructure. And sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. Overall, it works pretty well. But if there are specific, like not considering bugs that you encountered, if there were specific parts of the workflow that you found very challenging, I think we would be very interested to hear about those. And of course, it's also very dependent on your background. If you've never used the Linux command line, for example, then it's a bit of a steep learning curve to get started. Yeah, how should people give feedback? They should use the edX form.
For feedback, we created a dedicated questionnaire. We would be very happy if final comments on the course ended up in there. We provided the links both on the announcement page of the edX and in the last module of the course, in the summary and conclusion. The very last module unit there has the link.
Great. Other questions from the open questions in the Q&A. Will we be able to locally evaluate after today? That was answered during the slides. The answer is yes. You'll be able to continuously evaluate the exercises. Harry Das is feeling a little bit shortchanged because we didn't give him an award for getting the best grade in the collision checking, but that was not a graded activity. We only gave awards for graded activity, but maybe we can give an honorable mention to Harry Das for the best performance in the collision checking activity. There was a question also from Olivier about the schedule moving forward. So yeah, we plan to start the user-paced MOOC in the middle of September sometime. And I don't think we have a fixed date for the end date for that, but probably it will align pretty closely with the schedule for the AI Driving Olympics. And then a third MOOC, the third iteration of the MOOC will happen, but so Olivier is asking if there'll be a break between sessions, assuming the third MOOC will be in Jan 2022. I wouldn't assume that the third MOOC is going to be in Jan 2022. That we will continue to to offer this course, but at this point we don't have a fixed clear schedule in mind about when the third iteration would be. So that's for that. I'm not sure there's any question in here.
So somebody asked if the hardware for the next edition of the course is going to be the same. Mostly yes. We of course always receive the feedback and make improvements. So there's going to be very slight variations, but substantially it's going to be the same. And yeah, we will probably enable the support of the 4 GB version of the Jetson Nano as well, so that any of you who have it lying around can use that as well. But for the rest, the hardware is going to be the same.
Yeah, so the follow-up question from Nick is, can the existing be updated? I mean, for sure, the next version of the MOOC will be backwards compatible with the hardware for this version of the MOOC, absolutely. Can we still submit the MOOC exercises once the course is closed on edX? Or do we wait for the next MOOC edition in September? So you can still submit the courses, you can still submit the exercises to the challenges infrastructure, but your grade cannot be updated on edX. Effectively at the end of today, right? The edX course will be kind of put into some frozen state where it can no longer be updated. But certainly feel free to keep submitting the assignments to the challenges infrastructure. Another question about if exercises that were submitted yesterday will be evaluated. The answer for that is yes. Is there like an exact second for when the actual exercises should be submitted by in order for them to count? Because
yes, so the formal.
You have to update them and then get the grades into the system before it shuts off, I guess. So
we gave instruction to the TAs to ignore any submission that is sent after 11 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time today, which is the formal end of the MOOC as it's published on edX. So at 11:01 Eastern Daylight Time, you can always submit, but we will not consider those submissions for the grades. We will, at that point, collect all the new submissions. Since the process is manual, if any of you has sent stuff in the last few days, you won't see it appear directly on the DEX. You'll have to wait for a few days, and then you'll see your results.
Yeah, comment from Ash in the chat that being able to customize the Docker containers more easily would be great. Yeah, totally agree with this sentiment. This is not so straightforward to implement, but yeah, we are working to make the extensibility more streamlined and smooth for sure. Another question from Olivier. According to your interaction with industry and academia, in which industry, apart from the car industry, is autonomous technology, including computer vision and machine learning, being used today? Which industries do you see being behind? So this is maybe a good question for Emilio, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I've been looking at that question, thinking about it for a few minutes. I don't know how to answer. I don't know if I had the right answer. But one way that I will look at it is not in terms of what industry is most behind. I think that you should think of what industry would benefit the most, right? So where could you have the most impact? I was thinking of examples, right? So I don't know if if you guys are aware of the gondola, the gondolas, the boats in Venice that are, you have that like a guy rowing, and then you go through the canal in Venice, kind of like a romantic thing. Yeah, so that's very behind in terms of autonomous technology. But would you take a ride on a robotic gondola? I don't know. I don't know how well it would work, right? So I think that maybe not. So I really think that you should think of this question more in terms of where do you think the most impact could be. And in answering that question, you should think of how hard would it be to implement a robotic and autonomous solution, and in what way it will benefit the industry, in what way it will be a competitive advantage. So these are the kind of like things that you should think about. Of course, if I knew the answer, I would be doing it. So, and I got started with cars, so that's the area where I saw the opportunity. But that's probably the way that you should think of how to answer this question.
Great. Question from Varun. Will the next MOOC have challenges that use the IMU built into the Duckiebot? I don't think we have immediate plans for that. Jacopo, correct me if I'm wrong.
We don't have immediate plans, but it's definitely possible.
On the roadmap, but not the next version, not likely for the next version. Okay, question from Ash. In general, I don't feel like we did something complicated enough to really make use of the real hardware. I was hoping we would get to actually be able to plan a route for the real hardware robot. Did I miss something? I don't think you missed something. We did get to the point where we were planning for the real robot. In the control exercises, the robot was, was driving around the city. That said, getting to the point of really doing high-level planning was not something we got to in the course in the first iteration. Doing more complex planning, I think, will be likely part of the next iteration of the MOOC. But the level of complexity here it already gets pretty high. So we had the perception modules that were detecting the obstacles with deep learning. We had the perception modules that were detecting the road lane. We had the control modules that were driving down the lane. We had the state estimation modules that were estimating all of these things. And so all of these things were implemented and running on the real robot hardware if you had it. And getting all of those things to work together, as Emilio was talking about earlier, I think is a not insignificant challenge. So that's the objective of where we want to get. And so thank you for the feedback. And I think it's a good point, but there was there was also lots of stuff that we did do to make the robot move in the real world, which was already kind of hard enough as it was. But
if I may,
yeah,
sorry, Liam, just to share a thought with the audience. So we read lots of your feedback, and we had people with very diverse backgrounds join the MOOC. So of course, the feedback was very diverse as well. We matured the idea that it might be best to fundamentally break down the course into down the line of these behaviors. So, for example, having a first section, a first chunk of the course that it's only from like building the robot and calibrating it, or maybe up to lane following, while the second one would be more with the object detection, the obstacle detection and avoidance, and so the planning as was mentioned. If any of you have thoughts whether you would believe that splitting up the courses would be something you like, please let us know in the feedback form. We would love to hear what you think.
great. Question from Dennis. Hi, are you planning to release a course on autonomous drones? I don't know if this is like necessarily public knowledge, but we are planning at some point to release a course on autonomous drones. I'm not sure if the timeline for that is officially is something that's solid, but we definitely have this on the roadmap, and Stephanie Telex at Brown is the one who's leading this effort.
Actually, you can already start doing the course, not in MOOC format, but all the materials are available in the Duckietown library at docs.duckietown.org. It's a course more targeted at a earlier level, more for high school level, but definitely we've got a curriculum.
Question from Haridas: why binocular vision is not into autonomous driving? I think lots of autonomous car solutions do use stereo cameras. The advantage of stereo camera being that you don't have as many problems with resolving scale. In fact, most of the autonomous car solutions that I know of, and others can comment, have a bazillion sensors on them, many cameras that are all giving you a field of view around the car. So now it's almost more gone from stereo vision to these multi-camera rigs that give you a sensor field of view that covers basically 360 degrees around the car. So this is used in practice. We don't use it in our course because one camera is kind of already hard enough, and so we've stuck with that. But in some ways, we've saw like we make assumptions in the environment that enable us to recover scale. For example, we make assumptions about the configuration of the environment. We know the width of the lanes. We know that we're on a flat ground, and we can leverage these assumptions to, in some sense, overcome the limitations of just having one camera. And so in our case, I think the stereo camera would be of limited additional value, but in practice, definitely valuable in the full scale setup. Another question: anytime a 3D realistic environment like Carla Simulator will be getting into the course, this is also on the roadmap, has been for a while, to have a suite of sensors, probably not a Carla-like simulator, probably something built on Unity, for example, but this is also on the roadmap. By the way, for Haridas, for any of these suggestions, if you would like to help, please get in touch. We can always use more people. If you're an expert on using the Unreal engines or Unity or anything like that, then we're always looking for people to help make these things a reality.
If I may plug in here, Liam, just a reminder to everybody that even if you might not maybe be willing to help develop, but you want to stay involved, you can help us by beta testing and being our guinea pigs for new materials, basically. So if you have any interest in doing that, just join the Slacks. Ping us on Slack, and we already have a dedicated channel where some of your colleagues are already helping us out.
Great, yeah. Question from Kagri Katik. In my humble opinion, one is pretty good generalist after this course. What would you recommend to someone who wants to do a PhD in this field? or if one wants to be a specialist, what are the challenging stacks at the moment? So I have my opinions, but I'd love to hear also Emilio's opinion if he has one on this particular topic.
This is another one of those things that really depends on your personal interests and your personal tastes. I think that there's plenty of opportunity everywhere. So,
but why don't we have autonomous cars yet?
Well, I mean, if you ask me, what I usually say is that the biggest problem, the problem that really keeps me awake at night, is that we don't know what this car should do. So it's really not a problem in the robotics per se, in the robots per se, but it's more a problem on behavior specification. So I don't know if that's the answer that you wanted to hear, but
well, it's hard to do research. It's hard to do research to solve that problem, right? It's like, yeah.
Well, but I think that this is one of the things when I was saying that really when you think of robotics and making robotics real, there are a lot of other considerations that you should start thinking about, right? That go beyond how to design the control system or how to design the computer vision thing, right? So there are many aspects that, in a sense, before you start doing these kind of things and getting these robots to run in the wild, you never think about. But these are the areas where I think that new approaches, new solutions are needed before we actually have these robots running in our roads and doing other things.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that for sure. There are still like technical challenges in
right. So
in the like raw perception space or joint perception and control. So if you like computer vision, then there's still, I think, like intention prediction is kind of one of the most still open problems. And then like, yeah, coupling the uncertainty and prediction with actually making action, which is kind of what you're describing, I think is still like super hard and unsolved. Yeah, so there's lots to do, I guess. There's still lots to do.
Right, but as I was saying before, it's not that I would say I would recommend just controls is solved, planning is solved, or perception is solved. I mean, in all these areas there is a lot to be done. So for me, the answering that question is really, I think that one of the benefits of the breadth of this course is that expose the students to all the pieces, right? And I would imagine that some of the pieces clicked more than others, right? And that's, I think, is the area where, so if you really like one particular aspect, go for it, right? Because there will be plenty of opportunities to have an impact, focusing on that particular aspect as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Question from Sident, is there any offline course conducted by Duckietown? Would love to learn in offline mode. So all of the materials will be made available. The exercises will still be open. Effectively, you can continue to work on the course in offline mode. You just won't be able to get the certificate or interact through the edX platform. Correct?
Well, we will always be able to interact on Slack. That's a permanent resource that is continuously available. And I don't know, Martin, if you meant by offline, like a course, like an official institutional course, like in a university or whatnot. If that's what you meant, we do support instructors, particular university instructors, if they want to use all or part of the Duckietown materials to teach a course in the upcoming semester. To reach out to us, we will provide all the materials of the course plus additional materials, and then you could follow the course offline in an institution. Basically, talk to your professor or to your closer university and ask them to teach Duckietown.
Great. Okay, Martin, in favor of the drone course. Great to see the enthusiasm. Another question for Martin. Do you think it's possible for someone to enter the autonomous vehicle industry by using online resources like Duckietown MOOC without going through a full college degree in this field? Maybe Emilio?
Okay, so a college degree is something that people notice in the field, especially people is something that people notice, recruiters notice on your resume and things like that. It's maybe it's easier to get the foot in the door, but I would say that nowadays there are a lot of things that can really show your capabilities to a potential employer. GitHub, all these collaborative projects. And it is possible to build your portfolio in a sense, so that when you apply for a certain position, you can show people that, okay, so I don't have a formal or a college degree in this thing, but I've done this and this and this and that, right? And maybe you contributed to something that this company is using, right? And because somebody notices your code and things like that, or can actually evaluate the quality of your code and the kind of thing you've done. So I would say that just saying that you have taken the MOOC is probably not enough, but you can, if you can show what you have done with the knowledge that you acquired through the MOOC or degree, other things, that's probably something that can make the difference.
Great. And a last question from Kinshan Prasad Gunali is, are there any internship opportunities available? So yeah, I think that there's a number of different ways to possibly get internships. I think probably the easiest way is to contact the professors and staff of the project directly to see if there's any openings in their specific labs. So send an email to me or Emilio or Jacopo or Andrea or Matt and see if they have any openings in their particular labs. If you're interested in working on Duckietown related problems, I can tell you that I'm going to be very receptive to taking you as an intern in my lab. Then after that, I think get involved in the Slack community and talk to us. There's a big community now in our Slack forum, and it's possible that there might be other opportunities that we could find through your involvement through the Slack. So those are suggestions for if you're looking to do an internship on Duckietown. Anyone else have any other thoughts on that? Okay, great. Okay, Kagri, enjoyed the course. Learned a lot from my prof, who is supposed to be an expert in this field in Germany. Great, thanks for getting in touch, Kagri. Really appreciate the feedback. Yeah, let us know, drop a line, keep in touch, etc. Okay, so I think we've gotten through all. Oh, there's one more in the chat. Are you publishing this recorded session somewhere? I don't. We will put it somewhere. Do we know where?
Probably we will upload it on Vimeo and then share the link. Where, if the edX course is going to be, yes, we will look into it. Yes.
Maybe through the Slack. We can post it through the Slack.
Absolutely, yeah. In the general channel of Slack, we will post the link. Okay. Great. Then, if there are other questions, this is a great time to ask them. If not, I believe that this brings us to the end of this adventure. It was a great experience for us. We do really hope it was for you the same as well. And we look forward to interacting with you on Slack, in the other channels, and on LinkedIn as well. We created an alumni group for this course, which is going to be a great resource to stay in touch for all future related activities. So thank you again very much. I would like to offer the instructors to last minute to say anything, final words if you want to. And Liam and Daniele, Emilio, if not.
Thanks to everyone for your enthusiasm and involvement. It was fun.
Yes,
Thanks
thanks
again.
everybody.
Thank you.
Especially people who helped us. And I hope you will get engaged with Duckietown in some way.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.